Welcome back to my channel Conquer the Fear. In this video, we are going to discuss about microservices versus the monolith, when to choose what. So in this video, I am going to tell you what is microservices, what is monolith, and when to choose that. Okay, so if you are attending any interviews or if you are just on this video to learn what exactly the difference is about and when to choose what, right? So you are on the right video. So whether you are an experienced or a fresher, this video will be helpful for you, and this is one of the most frequently asked interview questions when you are attending any interview, right? So please don't forget to watch this video till the end. Okay, now when it comes to monolith to microservices, now you must be already seeing, right, all the applications which are all in the legacy applications, whatever the banking application, whether is e-commerce application, has been moving on to microservices, okay, from monolith. So when we want to choose why we need to move to microservices, because of the architecture. So there is it is one of the important decision, right? Because companies are doesn't want their particular application to hamper, right? So the shift has to happen slowly, and also most importantly, why they wanted to shift, right? So because microservices comes with, like, there is, its own challenges, but it has got great advantages as well, right? So it is depends on the project scale, team structure, and also the long term visibility or the goal of the company to majorly shift that particular application to certain microservices. Okay, so we'll look into that. Before going there, we will discuss what exactly the monolith architecture is about. Okay, so where in the legacy applications or the monolith applications, the architecture wise, we used to have the UI, business logic, data access, and the APIs, which were very tightly coupled. Okay, and also those were integrated into a single code base. Okay, and when you are deploying those were deployed as a single unit over there. Okay, the pros of this particular thing is that was quite simple. It was easy to maintain or easy to develop, test, and deploy your application. Okay, especially if you was having a small application, it was quite easy. Okay, performance wise, in process communication between the application was quite fast. That is inter-service communication call, that was very fast. Now there was a lower initial cost because it required very few resources to be there. It used to have similar or very less resources or infrastructure. Okay, security wise, it was centrally configured over there and managed over there because it was all inside a single unit. Okay, now to pros, there will be a disadvantages that why monolith architecture is not suitable for everything, right? So when it comes to scaling your application, so there was a scaling limitation which was there, because let's say at a certain level or a certain there, you have to scale that particular thing. So replicating this particular entire application as a multiple instances was quite challenging, and also that was not scalable as it was supposed to be. If your application is microservices, where certain services or certain wherever it is required, that has to be scaled up. So that was not possible because the entire application has to be scaled up. Okay, now these were very tightly coupled. Okay, so changing in one module will impact the entire system. Okay, so it was very tightly coupled. Okay, so we have to think 10 times before making any changes. Okay, so there has to be a lot of good analysis to be done. Okay, a lot of testing has to be done. So the technology stack also was a constraint over here. So it was very difficult to adapt to the certain new technology which was coming, right? Which was having a lot of new features, which was done quite easily when you have adapted to the new technology. But it was quite difficult to change that particular thing when it comes to monolith. Now deployment challenges, basically if you want to deploy certain, you have done some changes, now you have to deploy the entire application. Even there, if there was a minor few lines of changes, right, your entire application has to be deployed. Okay, and entire has to be tested. Okay, another thing is that risk of single point of failure. Now let's say there is some issue in one part of your application. It will, what it will do, it will bring down your whole system over there. No request will be served, nothing will be working over there. So there is a total failure over here. So this is one of the biggest challenges over here. Okay, so this is quite different from what microservice is about. Okay, we'll look into that particular thing. I hope the monolith disadvantages and the advantages you got to understand. Now, what are microservices? Now, microservices is nothing but you're trying to break that, or you're trying to decompose your application into certain small components and or internet independent services. Okay, so which will be, each will be responsible for their own specific business function or their own domain, right? So those has to be brought down in that particular way. Now these services you will communicate over the network. Okay, so we can make use of the protocol like HTTP, or you can make use of the asynchronous way, that is the message in queue. Okay, so these are the new way where we communicate. Okay, so whether you have to doing the synchronous way, whether you are using the asynchronous way, microservices has got its own advantages, and also it will give you a small independent services, so that you can handle those very properly, and only required changes has to be done on the required services, not on the entire services. Okay, all other services which is impacting. Now the pros of this is that, first of all, it is independently scalable. So whether you want to scale some services based on the certain demand or the required, let's say on some services require much load of that, right? Let's say a transaction is being performed, so there you can actually increase that particular number of instances, you can scale it up. Okay, individual services, not that entire all the services is required to be scaled up, right? Whichever the service is getting loaded up, it can be increased up. Now technology agnostic means you can use different technologies for different services, so there is no restriction or there is binding on that particular thing, that you should restrict it to certain technologies. Okay, so based on your need and your feasibility, you can use that. Now there is a fault tolerance implementation. So if one of your services is down, it will not entirely impact your whole chain of services which are there, right? They will be performing their own activity. Of course there will be services which will be doing the fallback mechanism, but yeah, it will not hamper your, or it is not going to fault or isolate you, that thing. So continuous deployment. Now you can actually deploy your services very independently. Now prior to that, we already discussed monolith is going to be independently. You have to deploy whole the application. Now here you can, whatever changes in which services we are making, only that services has to be done, and then only that has to be tested. So it doesn't have to test the entire integration over there. Okay. uh, uh, Resilience. Now you have improved your fault tolerance and isolation, so the resilience will be automatically improved over here. Now there are also some disadvantages when it comes to microservices. Okay, so whatever you are doing, right, there is of course like some advantages and disadvantages which is going to be applied. Now when you are trying to have this particular multiple services, there is a operational challenge or a complexity. So you have to be very accurate in the DevOps practices and the tools. So these are all, you have to be very robust in that part. So there is a complexity involved here, and you need to be on the tip of that thing. Inter-service communication. Now this is going to increase your network communication. There is always a possibility of network latency, and also this can be a potential bottleneck for your application. Okay, services. Data consistency challenges. Now when you're managing multiple services and it has got their own databases, right? So there will be a problem with making all these particular services in sync, and then there should be a consistency. So this is one of the challenges which we have to think of. Increase resource consumption. Now as I mentioned, each service is going to require its own infrastructure, its own database, its own deployment process, its own everything, right? So there's a separate chain of things which has to be taken up, so the resources also will be consumed as it is used separately. Okay. Now debugging and testing is quite difficult because distributed things, the nature is very complex, so monitoring is difficult, troubleshooting is different, tracing is difficult over here. So this will add your own debugging and complexity over there. I hope you got the understanding of what microservices is about and what are the pros and cons of it. Okay. Now in this particular thing I am trying to tell you, like, what would be the best scenario to choose when and what, right? Now there are some factors we need to choose. Let's say your project is quite huge, okay, or then you have to choose for microservices, because you can actually break down your application where you can scale it. You can complex application can be broken down, so you can use microservice architecture. Let's say your application is not large, it is small, or it is a medium thing, then for your monolith architecture will be sufficient and actually suffice for it. It doesn't have to move to the microservices. Now team size, the factor is that, let's say your team size is quite small, okay, so you can actually use a minimalist developers over there, and you can use it for the monolith. But microservices require a specialized team, specialized roles, okay. There will be a different things will be assigned to different team members, and there is a huge team requirement over there, okay. Development speed. So in monolith the development is quite faster in the initial stage, okay. But it will, as it, like, goes on, it will be little bit slower. But compared to microservices, at the very start it will be quite slow, because you are trying to break down those particular thing and then you have to do it. But as it on goes, there will be a increase in the speed. Scalability. Now in monolith there will be a challenge, or there will be a limitation of horizontally scaling. But in microservices is independently you can scale and the services to n number of things. Technology wise, monolith is only single stack, you have to follow that, you don't have option. But microservices, you have multiple options per services, you can choose what you need, what is the best possible technology which we can use up, okay. So there is no restriction with microservices. Now deployment process, this is quite easy, there will be a single deployment unit. But microservices, this is an overhead, so you'll have independent services, independent service needs to be deployed and tested and checked over there. Fault tolerance, this can be a devastating, where your entire system will be a failure. But in microservices, you can isolate this failure with the services, where you can implement some resilience 4j implementation, the fault tolerant implementation over there. Now use cases wise, if you want to do some MVCs, you have some internal tools, or like apps with the low complexity, you can use monolith. But let's say you have a very big applications, like e-commerce is there, streaming services where there are millions of users who's going to use it for their particular services, or any SaaS service, SaaS based applications where the usage is more, okay, in terms of volume, then we can use monolith over there. Now, I would like to throw some insight with the industry. What kind of a startup or MVP, are shifting right to microservices. Approximately 65% of the is going to prefer monolith architecture, because it has got a simplicity and it has got some little bit speed over there. Because these are startups and MVCs. Now, enterprise related things, they are adopting, like 75% of people are now trying to adopt microservices, which is going to 40% increase their cycle of future releases, what they want in there as a new features in your application. Now there are tech giants which, like Netflix is there, Uber is there, Amazon is there, like they are going to make use of using the microservices, because there is a requirement of scalability and flexibility. So these are actually already moved in, and they are continuously using the microservices, okay. Now in real world example, I will try to highlight one point, is that e-commerce, and as an example, monolith approach, this is only suitable for small startups which are going have got limited features, right? For them it is one of the suitable way. But microservices, it is ideal for very big retailers, like where there is a requirement of scalability, fault tolerance, rapid feature enhancement, and the deployment has to happen there. Actually you can use this. Now, summary wise, we already discussed, based on your requirement, based on your size, you can actually use this. So, monolith and microservices, it has both got their own disadvantages and advantages. They have their own architecture, but based on your project's goal, complexity, and long-term goals, you can choose that. Okay. So, we already discussed. please try to move, or whether try to be on the same system if you are having your if it is working as a wonder for you. Okay, so don't I mean in a hurry up or try to move on to microservices, because everybody is shifting. Based on your requirement, you can actually choose that and continue to adapt on that part. I hope this video was very helpful to you, and please share this video with the needy people. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you for watching.